for Black History Month. And I think, and my wife certainly believes, and I believe, that if you believe in the principles of America, that we're endowed by God with inalienable rights, that we're all created equal in the eyes of God, and that government's proper role is to protect our individual liberty. If you believe in those things, then you should be thankful for the contributions of African Americans, and you should celebrate Black History Month. And throughout our history, Black leaders have, in the face of sometimes insurmountable obstacles, challenged our country to, in Dr. King's words, be true to what you said on paper. And so I think when we honor the principles that make us unique, our country is better for it. And that was one of the reasons why I thought it was appropriate to pardon the Groveland Four, because that clearly was an example where our values were not honored. It was funny, people were saying, oh, you just can't do that. You got to do more hearings, and the newspapers, oh, they're not going to be pardoned, no way. And I'm just like, this should have happened a long time ago. What are we waiting for? So we were happy to do that the first week in office, and we're going to stand up for what's right. I also want to thank, for Black History Month, some of the greatest leaders have been our African American veterans. And just as a fellow veteran, any veterans here, but certainly the veterans throughout all the wars in American history deserve our thanks and our gratitude. I think about some of the World War II veterans serving in segregated units and coming home and not being appreciated, and indeed facing a lot of terrible treatment. And I think that's a sad thing in our country's history. But when you look at how pretty soon after World War II, Harry Truman moved to desegregate the military far ahead of where the rest of society was. And he didn't really do it because it was a civil rights. It was more of, we were a better military when you are taking in all the talent that we have available in our country. And so I think the military has certainly been better for that, and better for the contributions of African Americans. And I've tried, with my appointments, to just take a similar approach. You can kind of fall into this thing where people kind of, have one old boys network and just do this. And I've looked, really far and wide to get people who are maybe diverse in experiences, but the same in terms of excellence. And so that's what you see. We have African Americans leading key agencies in my administration, and agencies that are involving economic opportunity, about bringing business to Florida, and some others involving criminal justice. And then as governor already, I've had the opportunity to appoint people to county offices. And so I appointed the first African-American sheriff in the history of Broward County, and is doing a great job. We've appointed really strong leaders, African-American leaders, in Seminole County at the elections office, Okaloosa County for superintendent of schools. And I think the point is that these are going to be folks who are going to not only do a good job in the positions that they're in, but they will be leaders for years to come. And so in Florida, Black history is being written even as we speak, and my administration, will be an administration that will want to provide opportunity for all. So I thought about what we face now in Florida and what are some of the opportunities in terms of expanding economic opportunity. And it's funny, you may have seen the headlines recently. The governor of New York was complaining that Florida is, quote, stealing all the New Yorkers because, they tax a lot. If you guys have ever driven around New York City, I mean, the tolls, and I don't like the tolls in Florida, but like this is much different, much worse, just the taxes, all this stuff. And yet they have a $2.5 billion shortfall. People are leaving, and but my point is we're not stealing anything. You're driving people away with bad policies, and we're simply welcoming people to be able to do good things in Florida. And when I look at things like what happened with Amazon, look, there's a legitimate debate about subsidies, and I'm not somebody who thinks you can just pay businesses to come. But the bottom line is Amazon was driven off because of hostility in terms of the business climate and the economic kind of cultural views about that being bad because they were a wealthy company. I can tell you, if you want to come to Florida and create $150,000 a job a pop, come on down. We want you, because I think that's more opportunity for our citizens. And so we have to maintain a positive economic climate. We've got to remain a state where the taxes are going to be low, and we got to remain a state where we're going to use your money wisely, and that's what we're doing with some of our budget things. But I think just sending the message that we appreciate folks in all these industries, and coming to Florida is a good move, and we'll welcome you, because I think that means there's more opportunity for Floridians. So what we're doing, and so people look at and they see the tax difference and they see that, and I think that is important, and I think it is important that to be a more welcoming climate rather than have this be a political hotbed anytime a business wants to come. But I don't think that those are actually the most important things for economic success right now. I think that if you look at people who are looking to invest, probably the number one thing they want is human capital, education. They want people who, they want to see places where the school system's good, university, all that. And so we've done a lot and really put a focus early on, and we're going to have to obviously work hard with the legislature to bring some of this to fruition on making sure that we're expanding educational opportunities. And I want people to think of Florida as a place to come for human capital. So yes, there'll be tax advantages, there'll be this, but if I can go and sell a business on our university system, K through 12, that to me, I think, is probably going to be the most effective thing that we can do. So we've done a number of things, but first I think it's sometimes important to just, when I have a megaphone like I do now, to say some things that may not necessarily be thought of commonly, certainly outside of our state. But we in Florida have, according to U.S. News and World Report, the #1 rated university system in the country for public universities. And I think that's something that has not always been the case. I think there's been a lot of work and effort. We want to continue to do that, to have some of the universities be really top tier, more going into the top 100. That is something that I think is very positive. I think we're on a very good trajectory there. So we're going to continue that, but I'm also going to let people know that this is good. And oh, by the way, one of the best bargains you can get by going to college in one of our universities here compared to what some of the other options would be in other parts of the country. So I think that we're on the right track there, but I also think if you look at education broader than just getting a bachelor's degree, we're about middle of the pack when it comes to career and skills-based education for the rest of the country. So we've set a goal to make Florida #1 by the year 2030 in career and skills-based education. And that's going to involve a lot of different things. I mean, we're putting money behind some of the initiatives. It involves credentialing for college degrees, but also things that are more skilled trades, apprenticeships, and the like. We're doing a couple things. One is for students who go to college, get credits but don't get enough to get a 4-year degree. We want the universities to be able to reverse credential somebody so at least they have an associate's degree, and then they can take that and perhaps build on that later. We also want to take students who come close to getting a bachelor's degree but don't quite get there. We want to provide financial support so that they can do what we're calling a last mile, where you can have access to maybe getting those last few credits online, because people's lives change and it's hectic, and I know. But if you can do that and get that, I think that's going to end up helping you down the road. But I also, and as much as I went to college, and many of you, and I'm supportive of it, there are other ways other than a 4-year university to get knowledge and skills that you need to be able to succeed in our economy. And so I want a renewed emphasis on vocational education. We see some good examples throughout Florida. We want to continue to do that. But certainly at the high school level, I think there's a lot of businesses that are interested in partnering with our schools. And I know some of the school districts are working to do it. I had folks from the space industry in my office recently. I told them we're putting money behind apprenticeships. So they call us the next day. How do we start this? We want to be able to do it. So I think that putting people in where they're able to get some concrete training, I think is something where you then can graduate. Even if you graduate high school, you end up having opportunities to get good jobs. We were in Hillsborough County. They have a technical high school, and I was talking to a young guy, a junior, and he's in the welding program, and he's already been offered a job at the Port of Tampa. Now he wants to finish school and everything, but that's like $20 a pop right out of the gate. Unless you think that somehow if you're getting skills in welding that means you're forgoing other stuff. He was also taking AP classes at the same time. So this isn't mutually exclusive. But I think just understanding that the way our economy is changing, having some skills that you can bring to the table, there's going to be more and more of a premium on that. And so we want to make sure that we're equipping people with the ability to get the skills that they need. And so if we do all this, well, one of the other things, too, is just with the changing society, technology is going to continue to be important. That's not going anywhere. We're putting a renewed emphasis behind computer science. So we're putting money in so that the schools can send teachers to get training so that they're able to do that. And then if students want to use computer science as one of their science requirements, they're able to do that. I think that there's going to continue to be more job opportunities in that field, certainly for the foreseeable future. Another way to expand opportunity is I hosted actually at Valencia College something we called a deregathon. And what it was geared towards was looking at our occupational licensing regime in the state of Florida. If you want to be a barber and get licensed, you got to do all these different things. Cosmetology. Florida is one of the worst states in the country in terms of having a lot of onerous requirements, which to me, that just keeps people out who could otherwise do a good job. And if there's a basis for that to protect public safety or consumers, fine, make that case. The problem is, we have some requirements that no other state in the country has, some that half the states don't. Some states have more reasonable requirements, and I have not seen any difference in terms of consumer well-being or safety in any of those states. So what I asked all our licensing boards to do, take a look at what it is, how can you change it, and you need to be able to justify to me why it's for the protection of the public, but you cannot have rules and restrictions simply to create a guild and to keep people out. And so we're getting those. We're going to move that through the legislature, and I think that's going to be more. That's going to provide more opportunity for folks to do some good things, here in the state of Florida. The other thing we've worked hard on is we've putting money towards some of the teachers, not only for the training with computer science, but bonuses for teachers that are performing well. And there was an old bonus program. We've changed the criteria. We put more money into it, but we've changed the criteria that I think will be more reflective of people who are doing well in the classroom. We calculated, it's just one example. The current program, I think it was like 1% of the teachers who received the bonuses were African American. If my criteria had been used for that same year, it would have been 10% would have been African American. So I think it's an approach that is putting real money behind a problem of just rewarding people who are doing a good job and are important, but also doing it in a way that's more fair and I think more reflective of people who are doing a good job. The other thing we're doing, and Glenn was with me on this, is we have to look around and look at what works, and when things work, I think we need to stand up and support it. And so we're touring some of the schools that have been where the students are recipients of our corporate tax credit scholarship. So these are families that are low income. Many of the parents are single moms working. Many of them have multiple kids. We had actually a lady from right here in Central Florida talk about how she's driving a garbage truck for the city, got 3 kids. Her oldest son is in one of the programs at the school district here in Orange County and doing well. The other kids did not do well in that environment, and so she felt that there was a religious school that was doing it in a way that they could be good, and so she's on the waiting list to try to get this scholarship money. So I've looked at it, and the Urban Institute looked at it, and they said that for people who are on the scholarship for 4 or more years, you're more likely to go to college and more likely to get a bachelor's degree. And so we're supportive of that. There's 14,000 kids on the wait list for that, and my pledge is to fund that and provide them with scholarships so that they can get in the best environment as possible. And I think what I've learned is that all the kids are different. Different environments work for different people. My vision would be, no matter what your income, race, what part of the state you live in, that if if you're a single mom, you have an opportunity to go to the school district, school you're zoned for, but also have choice within the school district. Maybe there's a different district managed school that has programs that your kid benefits. Well, I want you to have access to that. Maybe you want a public school that's not run by the school district, where people are innovating in a charter environment. You should have an opportunity to do that if that what works. And then I think particularly for our low-income families, they should be able to have a scholarship to go to a place that suits their needs. And what I was impressed with some of the scholarship kids was, it's not just about academics in terms of being successful in school. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's part of it. But you look at some of these kids, in uniforms, and there's a different approach that you just probably couldn't do, in some of the schools that are managed by the school district. So I think there's all these different possibilities. And I want to be able to have kids go in the place that's most likely for them to succeed. So I think that there's a lot that we're going to be able to do in this regard. There's more we're going to be doing. I mean, you guys have been following. We're working hard. I mean, obviously transportation's a big issue here in Central Florida. I forget where I was the other day, but I was in Tallahassee, and I was talking about that. We're fully funding the DOT's work plan, trying to do it. And I was like, you guys may think you sit in traffic in Tallahassee. Go to I-4 or go to Miami. That is sitting in traffic. And so we understand that there are certain parts of the state, this being one of them, where the congestion is a problem. So we're going to work to address that. People are talking about affordable health care. We just made an announcement yesterday about lowering prescription drug costs, which is probably the biggest driver right now if you look at more things. I've already talked to the president. He's going to be supportive, but it's going to take a little time to get through some of the resistance that you'll see internal, I think, in the administration and in the Congress. But I think we'll get there, and I think that'll be good for our state budget, but it'll also be good for individuals. We put in the money. We tried to honor the trust funds, as they were there, and that included for affordable housing, which I know a lot of people had concerns about. So we did that. We'll be doing some more in the Congress. We did this First Step Act, to try to, do some reform for our criminal justice. I know there's some different ideas working through the legislature. I imagine we'll end up being able to make some progress there. So I think that, the next 60, 70 days are going to be very exciting if you care about the state of Florida. And I think we're going to be offering a lot of really positive reforms and, more importantly, enacting really important reforms that'll help continue our state's ascent and really expand opportunity for all of our citizens. So I want to thank Glenn. I want to thank the Urban League for putting this on and for having me as a guest speaker. And I look forward to working with you all, as the years go by. So thanks so much.